Welcome, everyone, and I want to thank you all for joining us for our latest InNoVAtion Lunch and Learn session. I'm Griffin Frank, a regional transportation planner here at the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority. These sessions are part of NVTA's commitment to staying at the forefront of transportation innovation. This is session part one of a three-part summer season that takes place typically on the first Thursday of each month. Each 45-minute session highlights actionable technologies either recently implemented or likely to be deployed in the next 5 years. Our goal is to inform and engage stakeholders across both public and private sectors. These sessions are designed to be more or less informal, formal, so feel free to relax and actually eat your lunch as we talk. I'll be doing the same. Today's session is recorded, and a copy of the recording will be available on NVTA's YouTube page, where you will also be able to see the previous 3 seasons. Closed captioning is available if you'd like to enable that. Click the closed captioning icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We'll also be conducting a few interactive polls throughout the session, so please keep your eye out for those. We encourage you to submit questions for our speaker using the chat, also located at the bottom of your screen. While we may not get to every question for today's session, we'll be sure to capture those at the end and potentially get back to you. This series aligns with NVTA's Transportation Technology Strategic Plan, or TTSP. The TTSP guides how we assess and integrate new technologies to support our long-range regional vision. Today's topic of variable speed limits and V2X technology relates directly with strategy number 6, which is maximize the potential and communication infrastructure. It also supports one of NVTA's core values of safety. For context, like many metro areas, Northern Virginia experiences consistently high levels of congestion. The DC metro area ranks 8th nationally for hours lost in traffic and 4th in person hours for delay per commuter, according to the latest INRIX data. The TPB's, or Transportation Planning Board's, latest congestion management process report shows that 2023 congestion levels have increased significantly since pandemic-era lows. The report also highlights the region's top 10 bottlenecks, with actually the 2 worst bottlenecks being located along I-95. Number 1, I-95 North, and then number 2, I-95 South, at the exact same location near the interchange at Route 234 or exit 160 in Woodbridge. But beyond congestion, the more pressing issue is safety. Speed remains a major factor in the severity of crashes. National data shows that there are encouraging trends, a 4% drop in traffic fatalities from 2023 to 2024, even with an increase in vehicle miles traveled. Dynamic speed management is critical for improving safety and efficiency on our highways. So that brings us to vehicle speed limits, or VSL for short, and V2X, or vehicle to everything technology. Variable speed limits use real-time data to adjust posted speed limits based on current or predicted conditions. This helps smooth traffic, reduces crash risks, and improves system reliability. And V2X enables vehicles and infrastructure to message each other wirelessly and quickly with other vehicles, roadside infrastructure, and vulnerable road users like bicyclists and pedestrians. Sharing this key information among road users can improve safety, prevent crashes, and reduce traffic congestion. With nearly 40,000 deaths on American roads each year, innovation tech like V2X can make very meaningful impacts on safety. This digital alerting has proven to help mitigate uh, dangerous driving conditions for passengers, emergency response, and heavy-duty vehicles alike. Uh, Before we get into the presentation, Alyssa will launch a quick poll or two.
Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. As Griffin said, we're just going to have a couple polls here. The first one is starting you out nice and easy, asking which mode do you use most often for your commute? We have personal vehicles, public transit, bike or scooter, walking, that you work remotely, or other. If you use something else, please make sure to drop your response in the chat. We're getting some good responses. And with that, I will go ahead and end the poll. And as we should maybe expect from this group of people, although personal vehicle is still predominant, close behind it is public transit. We will then jump straight into our second poll. This one says, how familiar are you with the variable speed limits, or as Griffin said, VSLs? This is just a ranking from not familiar to very familiar. And it looks as though we have quite a variety, but most people are somewhat familiar with variable speed limits. And with that, we will go back to Griffin and to Matt.
Awesome. Thank you, Alyssa. We're excited to welcome today's speaker, Matt Nice. Dr. Nice holds both a Master of Engineering in Cyber Physical Systems and a PhD in Civil and Environmental Engineering from Vanderbilt University. He is currently a research faculty member at the Virginia Tech Transportation Institute based in Alexandria. At VTTI, Dr. Nice leads experimental research focused on how connected and autonomous vehicle technologies impact overall transportation systems. He also explores the role of emerging technologies in shaping urban mobility through his work with the Smart Mobility Lab. His insights draw from a combination of rigorous research and real-world applications, so we're very fortunate to have him with us. Dr. Nice, thank you for joining us. The floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Griffin and Alyssa and NVTA for having me here today. I'm going to share my screen here for this presentation.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and stop my sharing.
Just 1 second here. Oh, sorry. My settings are incorrect in Zoom to share my screen.
I should have just fixed that for you. Could you try again?
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Can people see my screen here then?
Yeah, that's perfect.
All right. So thanks again for having me here today. Griffin had a great introduction, not only of myself, but of the topic about why we're interested in variable speed limits in general. And so thank you for the help. I'm going to talk a little bit about some pieces of the puzzle and really try to show some visuals and videos so people can have a greater, deeper understanding of kind of intuitively how these things might work and where the things might be going in the future. And it's leading up to, I'm currently working on with the Virginia Department of Transportation, connected vehicles study with our variable speed limits on I-95 northbound. So that's happening right now. So I'll talk about that at the end in a few minutes. So yeah, in general, things that we just heard, and I think everyone is familiar with, there are big safety costs in transportation that we're all interested in, reducing the safety costs, the energy costs, economic costs, and there's all different approaches, I think probably represented well in the room, looking at how we can use transit to address these things, new and revitalized infrastructure, changing and adapting policies to modern environments. All these things are some ways to, kind of attack these problems and these issues. My approach is really just about, as a researcher, thinking about technologies. How can these help with, so that's my angle. And things like connectivity give new information pathways to think about, to act on problems from whether you're a pedestrian, or in this case, we're talking a lot about vehicles. And the same goes for automation, is new pathways for making decisions, for controlling cars. So again, they're just tools to try and address our greater problems. And so a little bit of history, like research history, I think is really interesting, is about this idea of stop and go traffic, something we see a lot in the DC area. We see it everywhere, right? So this is the first sort of filming of it in a rigorous way back in Japan in 2008. You can see in the video quality is a little bit low for our modern standards, but what you will see is cars driving in this isolated ring road, and they're just driving in a circle, and there's no bottleneck, there's no crash, merge, none of that stuff happens. But what we start to see emerge is this bunching effect in the cars as they drive around, and the bunching effect gets larger and larger. You can see it's traveling backwards from the direction of travel of these cars. And this is exactly what Griffin had touched on, right? This creates an inefficiency in slowing things down, is an energy inefficiency for speeding, accelerating, and stopping. And then also it's an increased risk of crash. And so all of these things are sort of well documented at this point. It can be just from the interaction of people driving. Don't need anything else. You just need a lot of people driving on a highway to have this happen. Fast forward a few years, and you go over to Arizona, and they ran this same experiment, but they added in a critical twist, which was they put in an automated driving vehicle. That's the one with the black arrow on top of it in the ring. So again, you see the bunching happening, and then they turn on the automated driving aspect. Now that the arrow is red, and it totally erases this effect. It's a potential benefit that, right, though it's still in an isolated environment here, right, a ring road, not the I-95, it still shows that there's potential in using a technology to basically solve something that we couldn't do just with the natural physics of driving. Right? It adds something. Only one car out of this, 21 cars, removes something that in principle is solvable, but you needed some little push from technology to smooth things out. Okay, so this is really interesting. And this leads to kind of part of this work that I'm working on right now in this variable speed limits space. This is something that, again, Griffin touched on, this active traffic management concept. There's lots of different ways in which we try to do this as traffic engineers, to meter traffic, say, and keep things running smoothly. One of the approaches is this variable speed limits. And right, again, my little graphic here, this is something that is implemented in Seattle and Tennessee and in Virginia, where you have some sort of sensor downstream in traffic. Our cars are driving, can't see what's going on. And so some variable speed limits algorithm takes in this information of the drivers downstream and essentially can communicate this to us by recommending with a sign or a gantry, hey, you should probably think of slowing down, say, before a stop that you can't see. It's too far ahead. One of the critical aspects of this, though, to be most effective is to, have compliance with these posted speed limits. If no one heeds the information or the warning, then it won't make a big difference. And as a researcher, and just as a person who drives on these roads, I thought, well, a lot of people don't really follow these. It would be interesting to see what would happen if you do automated control car that went exactly at the speed limit as it changed while you're driving down the road. So that's what we did. So I'm going to show you the experience. This is your portal into an experience of an automated car that drives exactly as the infrastructure prescribes it using connectivity. So I went out. This was in a drive on early morning, and this is around 6:45, I think, in the morning. We were driving the posted speed limit, legally enforceable posted speed limit, and this pickup truck passed us on the left aggressively, honked the horn, some friendly hand gestures like, why are you driving that slow? And this is quotes from as we were driving, it was difficult for the driver to go the speed limit. It feels like it should go much faster than what the system recommends. And then lo and behold, what happens within 40 seconds, we're stopped right behind the car that aggressively passed us. So this indicates that, hey, like these things are giving us recommendations that are useful and are accurate. We were wasting time to speed up into a stop.
And
but
with
there's
that in
more.
mind, sorry,
Yeah.
not to cut you off, Matt, but we do have another poll question with those videos right there. So
Yeah.
just to keep you super engaged, everybody, we have another poll that's launched. So Griffin and Matt have both talked about many benefits of variable speed limits. Which of these do you find the most compelling? Improved safety through reduced crash rates, a smoother traffic flow and fewer slowdowns, more consistent travel times, better driving compliance during incidents or weather, or others / I'm still undecided. All right, and it looks like we have just about 80% having answered these questions. Last call. And as it's probably evident through the focus on safety through this presentation, safety has also been the top response, with smoother traffic flow and slowdowns seconding it. All right, back to you. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. Right, so yeah, just wanted these are a couple of graphs just to show you like being technically correct. I'll walk them through quickly. That this thing works, but it's not just enough to be correct. I think that's where I'm going. But first, just to sort of show some evidence that on the top picture here in the figure shows these solid green lines that are along our x-axis is the mile markers down the highway traveling from left to right. So those green lines are where the speed limits are set. The dotted green lines are where the car as it's driving will update, like listen to what the next speed limit as it's posted. And then our y-axis is the speed of the car as it's driving. And so you can see the orange is the speed of the car, passes the first dotted line. Oh, the speed limit is higher than where I'm going. I'm gonna gradually speed up and then be pinned exactly to that speed as I pass the speed limit sign. And to the next one, no change in speed limit, no change in the car speed. The third one, the speed limit is lowered, I'm going to lower my speed to match it. And so there's this aspect, and then on the bottom, again, just as the technical like pieces of when you think of from a the programming of the car itself, how is it going to drive in an automated way? There are times when it's at the speed limit, but also you need to go slower than the posted speed limit. Sometimes if there's a car ahead of you, the CBF is a control barrier that makes sure you're safe. So you're not going to hit the car in front of you. Of course, that's always going to be important if you're having an automated driving car. But okay, this is great. Like it technically works, but it's not the full idea because, of course, the problem of I don't really want to be driving so much slower than everyone else. It's not a practical solution to be adopted at scale in terms of how we all or most people probably want to feel comfortable as they're driving. And I really want to drill in on this specific problem by showing you. I hope you stick with me, please, in all these figures here. If you're not familiar, this is a time-space diagram where we have time going from left to right on the X, and then the going on the roadway here, the mile marker, the speed, the direction of travel is up. So through time, as you're driving, these different runs in black are a car that's moving the drive that we just saw in the video, right? Moving through the highway. And the background speed of the system is color coded. Green is the free flow and the red is the stops. And so in my box here, I have, we start in this free flow area and hit, as anyone would, right, as they hit whatever mile marker 65 or 66 there, this kind of wall of red. And that's our zone of most safety interest because we're at a really high speed and we're going to a stop. And that's what we want to communicate in our variable speed limit signs, for example. It's a good area for them to shine, telling people you can't see it yet, but there's going to be a big slowdown. So here, from the perspective of the car itself, we can take a cross section and show the sensors. See in the dotted green line, people were going 75, almost 80 miles an hour on average. Okay. And then this is at 6:36 a.m. Okay. And then at 6:38 or 6:39, the average speed is around 10 miles an hour. And our car, we get a recommended speed that is around 50 miles an hour at 6:36 a.m. And that's the dotted red. And have the system engaged, but the prevailing speeds around us are maybe 15 or 20 miles an hour faster. It just doesn't feel comfortable for the driver. It's not, they don't think that they'd like to keep the system on reasonable. And so they ditch the thing completely. And that black line, which was on the sort of optimal trajectory, goes up to meet the dotted green line right as you're about to hit the slowdown. And so this technical solution that's correct, has a form of correctness, doesn't actually address the full problem. And so this is what I wanted to make sure to highlight as one of the difficult pieces of like this V2X technology, connected vehicle technology as a practical matter. To actually work, needs to address this kind of dilemma. And this last one is just to show this distributions of as the speed limit. This is on a roadway in Tennessee. As the speed limits change, people often will go 10, 15, sometimes 20 miles an hour over the posted speed limit. And it's mostly because of this kind of scenario where they rather keep up with traffic around them as opposed to what is sort of recommended from the infrastructure. And so again, went out, tried this via media middle way path, which would add more flexibility to this connected vehicle concept to try and support the goals of the variable speed limit system by driving with the recommended speeds. And it takes in both the local traffic and the recommended speeds. And it looked a little bit like this, where again, like are there's these red areas in my little graph in the background where you are going slower than the speed limit because you're just following the car ahead of you. You can't go any faster. Green areas where we're exactly at the speed limit, and then a little bit of flexibility if the speed limit is going, or the speed of cars around are going faster, significantly faster than the recommended speed, to go somewhere in the middle that still supports the compliance with the system without being rigidly compliant and having someone totally avoid the use of the system altogether. This to me reminds me of, I've seen videos online of toddlers who will spill like their juice a little and then they get frustrated and they throw the whole thing away. Like, we don't want to create systems that force people to make decisions like that. Instead, you can be a little bit more flexibility to try and support the safety goals, the efficiency goals of the system, which brings us to sort of now, where I am now, and looking to the future a little, is a study with an ITTF program with VDOT in I-95 North with our Virginia variable speed limit system, which has two key components: the connected vehicle VSL impacts and the human factors. And so this year, we're going to be deploying a fleet of vehicles to drive all together at the same time on this corridor during congestion to see what, as a group, there might be a distributed impact on the traffic flow by having these connected vehicles driving. And then also separately, or in addition, a naturalistic driving study over an extended period of, it's going to be more than a year, with 125 participants, each having a vehicle driving it on this roadway for at least a month, to see how the deeper, longer interaction with the system, what do they like, what do they not like, what will make the system, these kinds of technologies, viable as a real thing going forward. And just again to harbor the kind of difficulty of some of these things, like how do you even measure all of these pieces? How would you measure the impact? Well, just to give you a preview of what this kind of looks like, we have to take things like from the left, which is a spatially sparse set of data, from these roadside sensors, and then infill with sort of mathematical techniques that can give us a complete spatial temporal speed field, and you can really see how these, again, this is that same time-space diagram, the red areas are these traffic congestion areas of interest. And then you can take that and look at trajectories of vehicles overlaid on it. How are they moving through this speed field, through the traffic, through the congestion? This is representing how, if you can see look like kind of pinstripes bending over the slowdown areas, this is exactly how cars would drive through this traffic. This was from a couple of months ago. And then again, right, these lead to, we can look at, this is our exact problem that we're going to be studying now. When we bend this speeding into a stop, we see the same behavior again in all of these systems. What will happen when we, at scale on a real interstate, bend these trajectories towards matching the recommendations given by the fixed infrastructure? So this is just some of the buildup to what we're looking forward to seeing soon. But we don't have the answers yet, but this is the study that's ongoing. And it will look something like this. This is not real trajectories. These are simulated ones that have a set of cars going in a loop, 25 fleet cars driving near each other, not one but next to the next, but near each other down the roadway, and be able to, we think, influence the flow of traffic to try and avoid that speeding up into a stop, and then supporting the safety energy efficiency, congestion effects, improvements from our variable speed limit system. With all of that said, I'd like to stop there for questions from the room. And thank you for your attention. And please feel free to reach out to me and for my co-PIs in this project over email if you have more thoughts later on. But yeah, thank you.
Well, everybody gets their questions being written down into the chat. We've got a couple more questions for you. So here is our fourth poll. And it is, what do you think is the biggest challenge to implementing variable speed limits? Driver understanding and compliance, the cost of infrastructure and technology, data availability and accuracy, coordination across jurisdictions, or legal or political constraints. Give everyone just a few more seconds to lock in those final answers. All right. And the top challenge, anticipated challenge, is driver understanding and compliance. Then we have our final poll, which is, where would you like to see the next implementation of VSL in Northern Virginia? The first option is to continue to expand along I-95. Then there's I-495, I-395, I-66, urban arterials with inconsistent speeds, such as Route 1, 29, 234, etc., or other. And as before, if you have a other response, please drop that in the chat as well. All right. 2 more seconds here. And we're ending the poll. So the top pick was I-495, followed closely by continuing to expand along I-95 and then I-66. Thank you everyone for participating in our polls. Feel free to write those questions in the chat. We did receive some questions in advance of this, and so I'll turn it over to Griffin to cover some of those.
Sure, yes, Alyssa, I'll get those questions up really quick. Our first question from our registration form was from Bob Carbach of the City of Alexandria. It took me a couple seconds to understand this question. I'm sure it'll come very naturally to you, Matt. But the question is the variation in traffic speed different with variable speed limits compared to the static speed limits?
Oh, okay. So yeah, this question is the variation in speed of sort of the measured speed of the roadway. That's what it's getting at. And I think there's a few different implementations of this kind of system in different places. The interesting thing has been that there's been some inconsistency on the sort of the amount of variation of speed being reduced. There's some suggestion, evidence suggesting that yes, but the most clear result has been for all around the country. There's a clear reduction in crashes and injuries within these corridors, comparing before versus after they turn them on, which is very interesting. Yeah. So I think the benefits, sorry, I didn't to expand a little bit about that and the speed variations, right? If you think about it, one crash avoided means you have one, a lane is not blocked for that amount of time. And so again, like that increases the stability of traffic flow. just by increasing the safety uh, of the system.
Awesome. And we have some questions mixed in here from the registration form and then from staff ourselves. So like on Google Maps, when you're navigating somewhere and Google Maps and related navigation apps, they'll display the posted speed limit on screen. Do you see this as like a pathway for variable speed limits to be like integrated into Google Maps, integrated into Waze for these platforms to kind of in real time reflect the variable speed limit as it changes? And to follow up, what kinds of interoperability challenges or opportunities does this present?
Yeah, I mean, the first question, that's definitely a viable pathway. It's as a technical problem, it's not very difficult to it's not a lot of data to move to put that into people's cell phones or put them into people's vehicles. Um, the the second part of the question is really where the challenges are, is thinking about the easiest and most effective pathways to it could be working with OEMs. It could involve large like cell carriers to make sure that there's a reliability and consistency. It's always available, you know. So all of these pieces are part of the puzzle in making this thing reality. And then, of course, there's only so limited areas which have this variable speed limit. Most roadways are just a static speed limit. And so to the poll that we just took, a lot of it's about communication and understanding of what are we going after on the roadway. So yeah, good question. I think it's definitely, from a technical sense, could happen very soon.
Yeah, that would be great to see. Next question, can school zones and work zones be considered part of variable speed limit ecosystem? If so, how might the technology need to be adapted to handle these environments, particularly, lower speed environments, kind of irregular, uh, maybe during times of day, these things can change.
Uh, yeah, I think about it in my head as a different category, but in a lot of ways, it's the same. And like you're saying, there's a change in the speed limit on a given roadway at different times of day, given different conditions. I think it would be interesting to use, instead of a static schedule, to use more dynamic speed limit system. So we're talking about school zones, so we know when school gets out. What if there are other events with lots of children or pedestrians? Uh, what if there were dynamic speed limits from large concerts or stadiums events where you have a bunch of people and you don't want to have the increased safety risk of higher speeds? So in that sense, I'd be interested to see and learn more about sort of what we could do, what we could learn from trying out some of these things in those contexts as a sort of a urban variable speed limits or a suburban variable speed limits, as opposed to just on highways.
And I'm checking out our chat box. I don't see any questions as of right now. I think
One
one
just
may have
came
been
in.
okay.
Matt has asked, the mention of urban arterials in that full question makes me think, how would the application of VSLs be different outside of limited access highways? Would the safety effect be similar?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the empirical answer. I think that a lot of the work that's going on in urban arterials with smart intersections, essentially, intersections are dominate the stopping and starting, as opposed to like the physics of the flow of cars. And so I think some of the pieces that would support, kind of a similar amount of improvement on safety might be in the more advanced coordination of the flow of traffic through major corridors. We just mentioned 29 and Route 1. So that's where my head goes, Matt, on your question.
We also have another one from Shri saying VDOT has implemented VSL on I-66 a few years back and they stopped it. Is there any study of the effectiveness of that pilot?
I don't actually know the answer to that. But thank you for mentioning, because I'm interested in knowing more about the details about that pilot deployment. Like I said, right, each of these deployments is taken sort of independently because they're relatively only a handful of them. They have different parameters. How far apart are the sensors? How far apart are the speed limit signs? What's the range in which they can be set? Local and state rules and regulations, and all of that can have an effect on the effectiveness of the system and the willingness of the experimental nature if you haven't done it before. So I don't have the answer, but thank you for flagging that. I'll look into that.
Thanks, Matt. I think we probably have time for one more question, Griffin, if you want to take it away with one of the other pre-provided ones.
Yeah, we have one last question. So beyond the technicalities, which we saw in the presentation, just kidding. What do you see as the biggest policy or institutional barriers to more widespread VSL adoption? Are there models from other countries or states that could help guide possibly Northern Virginia's path forward even more?
My first thought on that is I think part of it will be the coalition of people involved. So I mentioned different kind of stakeholders buying into the technology as being supporting safer roads and more efficient roads. So I think that as that continues to solidify and come together, we'll be able to see more benefits. I think staying grounded in kind of the evidence, the data, the effectiveness of these policies can, I think, empower the decision makers, the non-technical decision makers to sort of understand how things are working or not working, and then keep pushing forward iteratively on like celebrating and strengthening the successes, and then pivoting away from the weaknesses. Yeah, I don't know. That's what I think, at least.
No, that makes perfect sense. Out of respect for everybody's time, I'd like to thank Matt. Your insights on VSL and deployment are truly invaluable. I think it's an emerging technology that was introduced in Virginia not too long ago, and we may or may not see it further expansions in Virginia. But before we go, I just want to thank everybody for submitting their questions. And I'd like to invite you to our next InNoVAtion Lunch and Learn, which will take place on July 10th, same time. This will be a week later than usual just because of that 4th of July holiday. The speaker and the topic have yet to be announced, so stay updated for that announcement, and you can do that by staying connected with NVTA and learning more about our programs, plans, and future events by scanning this QR code, which will allow you to follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and check out our latest updates. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us, and we hope to see you at a future session. Have a great rest of your day.